began broadcasting for the Library Project State Archives in Frankfort, Kentucky, the Murray State University Pogue Library, and for the Marshall County Library. And we're visiting in the home today of Miss Nina Harper. Miss Harper, we'll start off and ask you how old you are.
I'm 78.
And were you born in Marshall County?
I was born right over yonder.
Just within distance of where we are right now. Well, very good. And your father's name was what?
Jeff Bird. He was a bird.
Uh-huh.
My mother was a Banks.
Your mother was a bank.
This is the bank. That over there is the bank's land.
Mm-hmm. So you're right around the farm then, where your mother lived.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know any other of your ancestors? Could you go back, say, to your great grandparents?
I'm the youngest one of the bunch of them.
Uh-huh.
It's living.
How many children were in your immediate family?
My daddy and mother
Mm-hmm.
just had 3, and I'm the only one that lived when they both were born dead. My grandfather had 12 with his first wife, and they all died but 4.
Well, that was a large family, wasn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You know Bud Banks, didn't you?
I don't believe I did.
Did you know 5?
I don't.
5 Banks?
I don't think so, Miss Harper. I grew up in Hardin, and that was 100,000 miles from Benton when I was a kid. See. I mean, we didn't come to Benton that often, and all I knew was what I could look out the door and see.
Now, I don't know, I can't tell you, but my grandfather Banks come from West Virginia, or one of the Carolinas, and my grandmother come from the other, but I don't know which one which.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you go to school in Benton or in a one-room?
No, Church Grove.
At Church Grove School. Well, I've heard a lot of people talk about going to Church Grove. Do you remember who your first teachers were, or any of them?
Yeah, but he didn't live but a little while. The first teacher I ever had was Irvy Walker.
Irvy Walker, all right.
He was a young man, and he got sick just right after school began, and he died of TB.
Tragedy. Do you remember any of your other teachers?
And Mr. Cross finished his out. Now, you might have known the Cross. I guess it's the Cross that taught school forever over in Marshall County. Now, I don't know what his name was. I just called him Mr. Cross.
Uh-huh. I remember the man of whom you speak. And in fact, he hasn't been dead so terribly long. Yeah. All right, so Mr. Cross finished out that school and then taught a number of other years. And what did you like most in school?
History.
History was always a favorite. Good. That was always one of my favorites, too. I like history. And
you know, I guess people think I'm crazy, but I just enjoy sitting down, nobody around but me, and reading the old Bible. That's history.
Certainly it is. That's very good. You spend a good deal of time then reading in that way.
Well, not too much now. I try to take care of my eyes.
Your eyesight is not real good?
No. Mm-mm.
Well, I believe before I came up and this rain started that you were out working in the garden. Isn't that a little bit vigorous for a lady of 78 years old?
No.
What do you grow?
Well, I'm not going to have much garden this time. I always have a big garden. And I can it, and I give it away, and I freeze it.
Mm-hmm. You like peaches?
Well, I'm not.
You don't have an orchard?
I'd rather have apples, no.
Rather have apples.
I like apple pies.
Yeah. Right now, I suppose, as wet as it's been, you don't have much other than onions and lettuce and cabbage.
Ain't got nothing in the garden. I set out some cabbage this morning. Set them out in the mud. Will it do any good?
Well, that all depends. I think they probably will.
I don't believe it will.
Yeah.
I believe when it does dry up, I believe that dirt that I put in there will just cake around them roots.
You still make kraut?
No, I've quit it. I can't eat it. I don't make it.
What did your father do? Did he farm?
Mm-hmm.
And you grew up on a farm and you went to Church
I
Road?
grew up right out there. My daddy died he died in 1916.
How, did you ever work on the farm in those days? Did you,
Oh, did I ever? I have hoed cotton, I've hoed strawberries after I married, and I've hoed tobacco.
Well, you finished school then at Church Grove, and you just mentioned your marriage. When did you marry?
Oh, I didn't marry till 32.
1932. Did you have any children?
Mm-mm.
And what did your husband do?
Farmer.
He was a farmer also.
That's the reason I stayed in the strawberry patch, the cotton patch.
Mm-hmm.
We learned, as we got to where we wasn't able to do nothing, how to raise cotton and strawberries, get dolphins.
Oh, you let them
Yes, and they keep it clean, too. You better
pick
believe.
out the grass, and you don't have to hoe it with a gooseneck hoe. That was tough work, wasn't it?
Oh, you go to hoeing them cotton rows, and they're just solid, and the strawberries, too. Just solid all the way down and grass all over.
Do you remember what cotton brought in those days?
Nothing. Nothing.
Practically nothing. And the tobacco was awfully cheap, too, wasn't it? I remember one year, 33, when my dad's crop, he rented a farm and agreed to pay a third of what the tobacco brought.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought, after the sales expense at the floor, it brought $21. So he gave the landlord $7, and we had $14 for our livelihood
Well,
for
I
the year.
don't reckon we ever done this, but I heard them say that there's some of the farmers that owed them.
I've heard that. I've heard a man tell one time that the tobacco didn't bring enough to pay the sales expense on the Outlands floor at Murray. And that he told the fellow he didn't have any money, and he said, well, bring me a chicken. So his wife had some hens.
Well, you know, these chickens filled in for a lot of things, didn't it? Back when times was so hard, me and my mother had a time of trying to make a living. And, you know, we've always had missions for church.
Yes, sir.
Well, the times got so hard we couldn't pay a preacher. What he needed and paying a missionary. And the women at Church Grove Church got them chickens, and they sold them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why, they had to if they gave anything, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Had to give what they had.
And I know we did a long time. We saved our Sunday eggs.
The eggs that the hens laid on Sunday, you gave that to the Lord.
To the preacher.
Mm-hmm, to the preacher, okay.
I was giving more than a tenth, wasn't he?
Well, it sounds like a seventh, doesn't it? And that's more than a tenth in anybody's
Well, now, you may not believe this, but I honestly believe they laid more on Sunday than the other time.
Well, they might
Was
have.
the Lord with the old hens?
Well, he made everything, so I guess he's in some
Oh,
way.
no, sure enough, we nearly always got more eggs on Sunday than the other time.
And those were difficult times, of course.
Oh, I believe people enjoyed themselves better than they do now.
What did you do for amusement back in those days?
We didn't do that. We didn't go nowhere as much and just go to church.
Church was a social event, of
Yes.
course. And do you remember any of the preachers in those early days?
Yes. And I've got a whole list of them. from 120 years back.
Is Church Grove that old?
Church Grove's been there 125, I think, or 30 years. And I've got every one of their names.
Well, that's an interesting calculation.
You see, we had our, whatever you want to call it, last year, 2 years ago, the 120th.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got every one of them preachers from the first and on down. My great-granddaddy Banks was one of the charter members. When they started the church, they started over yonder on that hill that you go down before you get to where the old church was. A log house.
That must have been started back about the time of the Civil War then.
I imagine it was. I don't know how long it's been since the Civil War, but it's been about 125 years since it started.
Well, that would put it in the neighborhood of 1860 or so. Well, I wasn't really aware exactly how old the congregation was, but like many places in Marshall County, there was a school and a church right side by side, more or less.
Well, when they built that church up there, well, I reckon the people outrode it. And one of Mr. Green's, that was old man George Green. Now, you don't know nothing about him, and I don't either, because before me and you ever thought of. He gave the church and the school land, as long as they kept it for school and church, to build both on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was Uncle Wash and, I can't think of his name, Green's daddy.
Yes.
Now, that's been years ago.
I didn't know the man, as you say, but my wife's grandmother, Nettie Landon.
Well, he's one, Wash Green.
Married, or her name was Green, I believe, her maiden name.
Yep. She was one of the brothers to Uncle Washington, whatever that other's name was. I forgot what his name was. I can remember it sometimes, but I can't all the time. Because they died when I was small. And now, her daddy, I reckon, was a brother to them.
Yeah. What did you hate to do when you were growing up worse than anything else?
I don't know. I never did just really hate to do anything.
One lady I asked the question said she hated to worm tobacco. She didn't like those
Well,
old...
I didn't like that, but I wasn't afraid of the worms. I'd rather worm it as suckered.
Yeah.
I didn't have to get down as low to find the worms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your thumb didn't get as sore rubbing all those suckers out. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you the thing that I hate about farming worse than anything else that we ever did try to do, and that's raising cotton.
You just don't like cotton.
I don't like it, period.
What was so hard about cotton?
Hoeing it and picking it. I just hated pick cotton.
Well, that ruins your back, doesn't it? You have to
It
bend
ruins you
over.
all over now. And talk about your fingers getting sore, you let them birds get a little hard.
All right, did you ever make sorghum molasses?
Oh,
I always enjoyed...
don't ask a question like that after I married. Why, we had a molasses mill. And we made sorghum molasses all the fall long till it frosted.
You made them for yourself, you made them for other people also.
Made them for the whole neighborhood. Mm-hmm. One year here, well, it was during the war. World War II. We just a few gallons. I forgot how many it was. I think it was 4 or 5. I'm making 1,000 gallons. And I told some if I'd known Dad had run out like that, I'd have put juice in. Some of them made.
So you'd set the record at above 1,000.
But now, when you stand over a molasses pan for 6 long weeks, you're ready to get away from there.
Now it's hot and steamy. And
Yeah, and the trouble of it is you've got to get out there the sun up and it's till dark. And then you've got all your night work to do up. If you do that, you don't need no stock or nothing like that to sit there.
You remember the skimming hole?
Yes. And I remember skimming the molasses, too.
Did you ever step off in it?
No. Well, what's that with?
I did one time, I remember. I was playing around and stepped off in the skimming hole.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something you ain't going to believe. It was funny, and it was serious with me. We had an old sow that just brought a great big bed full of pigs. She had so many she couldn't take care of them. We'd taken 3 of them away from her, and I raised them. Great big pigs running around the fall of the year. And they'd go down there to that molasses mill because people would come and eat dinner while they'd pitch the scraps out. And they'd go down there, and I guess eat some molasses too one time. So I come in one night as this about dark. I always give them milk. When the milk. And I come in, and one of them was laying out in the yard, just broadsided. Just as limber as a dish rag. Learn what was wrong with the pig. So I told my husband when he come in, I said, that pig's going to die if he ain't already dead. I got up the next morning. That frazzling pig had done out and went back, I reckon, to Sauger Mill to get another dose, and he was just drunk.
He drank that, and it fermented in his stomach and made him drunk.
It's already fermented. You see, to stay there so long, it gets sour.
Mm-hmm.
That pig is as drunk as, well, some of them told me that's what was the matter with it. They laughed at me when they come to make molasses the next day. Said they'd seen Florida Sutherland, and he was making molasses. His hogs run around the molasses mill, and he'd seen them pick them up and drag them out and leave them out to sober up.
I don't believe I ever heard a story like that, but I believe it.
He just well believe it's so.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the pig is dead, and I went out next morning to see if he wasn't dead, and so I said when he come in from feeding milk, and I said, that pig is done gone. I don't know what in the world's the matter with him. He's gone.
When you grew cotton, did you ever card out some and make quilt bats?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd put in a quilt, and the neighbors would come in and
most of the time, Nana quilted them. Miss Hicks lived over here. After we had that house over there built. They lived over here, and once a year, me and her pieced and quilted. Now, we didn't piece them all. 22 quilts that year.
You were a busy lady.
We both was.
Mm-hmm.
And she had 9 little children. And then women tell me it was 2 that they can't piece quilts, and I know it's not so.
Yeah, we're not used to working as hard as you worked.
Well, it didn't seem like it was too much trouble to her, me and her. I pieced quilts at home when I wasn't over there if I had time. And she pieced them over at her house.
You were used to it, and you just didn't think a whole lot about it.
I've got to work in a quilt now. I'm sorry. I
Well,
enjoy it.
It takes pretty good eyesight to make those fine stitches.
It's not the eyesight what it's his handing on.
You have arthritis in your hand?
I hurt that hand here several years ago, that arm. And I can't turn it over. You see, you've got to put your left hand under the quilt. And I can't turn that hand over and quilt.
Now, let me ask you, Miss Harper, what did you sell quilts or?
Oh, yes. Me and her pieced and sold them all. No telling how many quilts I sold.
What did a quilt bring then?
Nothing.
Now, quilts are pretty expensive today.
Well, I don't know.
Don't they
now,
make,
listen, don't you guess, Mr. Mofield, don't you guess they bring just about as much then as they do now, according to the expense?
Well, you may be right. The inflation has brought the price
well,
way
you can't
up.
go to the store and buy a lining for a quilt. I bet you anything you can't. I've not bought one. Now, I don't know. But I can't bet you can't get a lining for less than $5 or $6. Well, you've got to have the lining. Well, you've got to have the cotton or the filling. And you didn't, Tracy. Here's $4 or $5 a roll. And the time, if you have to buy your pieces, what are you going to make?
Well, you wouldn't make much, would you? Did you ever hear of brown domestic?
That's what we always made the linings out of.
And you dyed it with, what was it, Rit? Was that the name of the dye they had?
Mm-hmm. I've got a quilt over yonder at home. I call that home over there. I'm not satisfied over here. I moved over here because I could have electric heat.
Yes, sir.
But I've got a quilt over there at home that my mother pieced when she was just a little girl.
You treasure that, obviously, because it was your mother.
And it has got a lining. I guess it's domestic. I don't know what they call it back that far back. And it's dyed with some kind of bark.
Well, in the pioneer days, of course, going back to Daniel Boone's era, they made dyes out of walnut hulls and pokeberries and all sorts of things, just in nature.
You know, us young people didn't have a lick of sense.
Had
we remembered all that.
Oh, it would have been good if we could have tape recorded some of those people. We could have written records of it, I suppose.
Well, now, there was a certain kind of bark that they'd get and make a certain kind of color. And they could put salt in one color, I believe it was salt, in one part of it, and it'd make it a certain color. And if it put alum, it'd make another color.
That knowledge has been lost to most of us, though.
It's been completely lost to me.
You speaking of bark, did you ever gather any slippery elm bark?
I drank the
water. What was it they did with that? Was that to cure stomach trouble?
Well, I've heard them say that you could take that. Now, I never tried that. I've heard them say you could take that slime, you know. And rub it on a sore. Heat it up. I never tried that, but I have drank it.
I have seen older people gather scaly bark.
Well, there's a certain kind of color that you color it with
scaly bark hickory.
Yeah, I can't tell you that. I was too young to remember Mama and Sis and all of them coloring with it.
And I suppose you have drunk sassafras tea.
Yes.
Now, what was it that was supposed to do?
Well, you wasn't supposed to be sick that summer if you drank that. You know, Leonard Cope folks never let the February go by that they drank it through February.
Well, they've lived a long time, haven't they? So.
Oh, I'm going to tell you something right now. You may not believe what I'm telling you, but here they live on herbs. They don't take medicine. They don't go to the doctor.
And most of their years, I guess they've had good health. He always had a good garden, didn't he and she?
Yes, him and Mary Smiley did. Now, Miss Cope never did work too much in the garden. Did you know he was in the hospital, in the rest home in Salem?
I didn't realize he was in the rest home. I had heard he'd gone to the hospital recently. And I'm certainly...
Won't never be no better.
Sorry to hear that.
His is mine. We was talking about this place here. You know, I've got the old deed that was made it.
How far does that deed go back? Do you have any idea? Was it among the first deeds that were recorded?
Well, they didn't call it a deed, did they? I don't think they do. It's not wrote like our deeds that we get now. If it was a governor that fixed it, you see, it was, he just, well, we call it.
Well, did your grandfather, for example, was he awarded that because of, say, military service?
No, they just bought it.
Uh-huh.
You know, they used to could buy it from the government. My great-granddaddy bought it, not my granddaddy.
Well, there was a land office at Wadesboro.
That's where it's at. And that deed is made there before there's ever any courthouse at Murray or at Benton.
Yes, Wadesboro became the capital in 1823 of what was Callaway County, now Callaway Marshall both.
Well, they homesteaded this. Could you see me starting from Virginia in a covered wagon with a house full of children? And all I had in the world in that one covered wagon?
Was a Southern Harmony songbook?
I didn't know about Southern Harmony. But now that's what they done. Well, they come here and not a thing in this world. I've often wondered what in the world they done so they could get a log house built.
It took a lot of nerve to...
I've heard Mama and Uncle Bud tell this. Grandpa told them about it. He was the only boy. And he was a baby. And the girls and his daddy walked. And he rode the colt. And he's little. And his mother drove the wagon.
They used every one of them. They needed all the human power, manpower they could get, didn't they?
What do you reckon? They brought a cow with them?
Oh,
I thought about that.
They must have. You couldn't live without a cow. As poor as we were in my family.
Well, I know we had a
we
cow,
always
too.
had a cow.
But I've studied about that now. Sometimes when you're by yourself, you think about what you've heard way back yonder, and you can't help but ponder it. Just know how they got by with one covered wagon full of stuff.
Mm-hmm. They had to cross creeks and rivers with no bridges. I've wondered how they did that.
Well, they come over here and built that house back over yonder. And I've studied lately why that everybody had a graveyard on the land.
Yes, they seemed to bury on their own farm.
In their yards, you might say.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of infants died in the first year of their life.
And now my grandpa had him and my grandmother. Now he was married twice. He had one child, but his last wife, and she died after she got grown. But my grandpa and grandma had 12 children, and every one but one, well, 4 or 5 of them, died in infancy.
Mm-hmm.
And that little girl was about 4 years old when she died, and there was just 4 of them lived to be grown.
It was a terrible toll compared to today. Of course, we have modern hospitals and modern medicine. Well, you know, our half hour is just about elapsed, and it's gone very quickly. I wonder if there's something that you'd like to get on the tape before we close.
No, I don't care if we have anything on it or not. I'm not interested in it.
Well, we're certainly delighted that you permitted us to come, and I'm glad that someone recommended that we interview you because you've had some interesting things to say. And
Well, now, the Banks family is all dead. Claude Banks, you may know him, is the only one that's here, and me. Of course, he's further on down the line than I am. I'm the and it's his great-grandparents.
Well, Miss Nina, we appreciate your allowing us to come.
Well, I can't tell you that I can't think that you've made much of it.
Well, we've taped some interesting conversations from you from the years of your life, and we appreciate it very much. I'm Ray Mofield, and we've been recording for the State Archives in Frankfort, the Pogue Library at Murray State, and of course WCBL Radio through a grant has paid for the taping, and there will also be a copy at the Marshall County Library. We return you now to your announcer.